Well, we're here, Dave. We are just a few days out from Ohio State, Michigan. Once again, I'm Patrick Murphy here with Dave Biddle. We just finished up at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, literally right there, talking to the Buckeyes ahead of this week's new version of the game. This will be our only media availability this week, so we had an extended time with the players. What is your general vibe walking out of this building right now about this team? We'll get into specifics and what guys said, but just how do you feel coming out of this media availability?
There's a quiet confidence. You're not sensing any cockiness, and I'm not sensing a tight team. I'm sensing guys that are just locked in, that are confident. They're not saying anything that's going to give the other team bulletin board material. Jack Sawyer was asked, wasn't asked specifically, the words Connor Stallions did not come out, but Jack Sawyer was asked. You've talked about the last 3 years, and one thing that you haven't talked about, haven't been asked about, there were other factors at play. Can you get into that a little bit? He said there was a long pregnant pause, thought about it, and he said, we don't really talk about that anymore. I said, thanks, guys. And that was going to be the last question anyway. It wasn't like Jack walked off, but it was like, that's an example, I think, of how just they're serious, they're confident, but they don't seem tight to me. Is that kind of your take?
Yeah, I agree. It definitely has the feeling of a big game, even though Michigan, the record is not good, 6-5, I think. But the Buckeyes realize what the opportunity is for them and the challenges Michigan still presents, even if it has not been the same type of season they've had the last few years. And the biggest thing for me, and I'll say this a lot this week, the mental hurdle for Ohio State is just getting over that hump after 3 seasons. And I feel like they understand that challenge, but aren't caught up on it, right? They aren't, we got to get this done. No, it's let's go about our business. We do this every day. Ryan Day talks about that quite a bit. You prepare for this game so much. You don't need to change anything. It doesn't need to be a different type of week because every week this has been the back of their minds.
Yeah, and he used Navy SEALs as an example.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're a Navy SEAL, you don't think in the moment, oh my gosh, we're in Bin Laden's compound. No, that doesn't go through your mind. You just focus on your training. You think back to your training, and that's what they're saying now. They can't be thinking, oh, we're in the game. It's like, no, we've trained for this all year. They're going to prepare like crazy this week, and they're going to fall back on their training. I like when coaches use military examples like that. I thought that was very poignant, and it just drives home what they're preaching. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of pressure, but if we just focus on what we've been trained to do, we're going to be more than fine.
Ryan Day specifically, this game means a lot for him. He's talked this week already about kind of stuff that's happened with his family because of losing 3 in a row. Obviously, just the normal pressure of being the Ohio State coach ramps up when you lose to Michigan, especially 3 times in a row. What did you make of his press conference? I felt like he was very calm, a lot like we've gotten the rest of the week. But obviously, he's aware of, I don't think he's getting fired if he loses this game, but he's aware of what kind of hangs around this game and what it means to everybody involved.
Just for him, and he didn't say this today, he was asked about it, just for him to say that even compare how these last 3 years have been losing to Michigan with losing his father to suicide when he was a child. Now, he said, obviously, losing his father was the worst thing.
Yeah.
But he said, the next worst thing was losing to Michigan 3 straight years. For him to even talk about, losing his father in that tragic fashion, that's something if that doesn't, drive home the point, I don't know what does. But like Patrick said, I felt like he didn't come in there like he was like, oh, I'm nervous about this. Business-like, yet confident, much like his players, calm. It didn't seem tight. And, they say, the players, follow the lead of their coach. And you're seeing, reflect their coaching, their head coach, their leader. And you're seeing the same attitude from Ryan Day as you're seeing from his players, in my opinion. And another thing that really caught my attention from talking to the players was how they were going out of their way talking about how they want to win this for Ryan Day. They want to win for a variety of reasons. You're talking about an entire team. Some of these guys have been here 5 years. No gold pants on this team, which is crazy when you think about it. Yeah, 2020 was stolen from them, but the fact of the matter is that they don't have anybody from the 2019 team, unless I'm forgetting.
No.
And nobody has gold pants on this team. Some of the coaches do, but none of the players do. So there's a variety of reasons they want to win this game, obviously. They want to get to the Big Ten championship game. They want to keep their goals alive. they want to beat Michigan, just period. But they were going out of their way to talk about how much they want to win this game for Ryan Day. And even Will Howard, who's been here 11 months, he gets it, man. I mean, you guys know that. Will Howard just gets it. But like the other guys were talking about, Cody Simon, Jack Sawyer had a great answer about that, about just how much they love Ryan Day. And, Sawyer was cussing a lot, which was, interesting. He was getting fired up. He was like, he didn't say BS. He's like, I think it's BS that Coach Day's taken any heat the last 3 years. Now, if you lose to, we know the deal. If you lose to Michigan 3 straight years, you're going to take heat. Were there other factors at play? Yes. But I think Saturday is going to be the reckoning. I really believe that. This is a good Michigan defense, and their offense is playing the best it's played all year, but that's a hell of a low bar. I really feel like Ohio State's going to take it to them. I don't know where you're at.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be foolish, unless you are from a Michigan point of view, to predict against Ohio State with the way that the Buckeyes have played this year and the way Michigan has played this year. But these guys can't make that, right? Like, it's got to be, this is going to be the hardest game. And I fully expect Michigan to come out, whether it's doing things they haven't done all year or just doing them better in this game, because this could change the perception of their season, right? For these players, for these coaches. You finish with 7 wins, whatever it is, in the regular season, but you knock off Ohio State. You keep them out of the Big Ten championship game again.
Your season is a success.
Yeah. I mean, there's still the college football playoff. Ohio State, in theory, could lose this game and still go on and win a national championship, and then we could have that conversation down the line. But this would be, as you said, it would make Michigan's season, and so I think they will play that way.
The only way I think Ohio State's going to lose this game is if they lose the turnover battle, because if the turnover battle is equal, or Ohio State wins the turnover battle, because I think Ohio State's defense is just going to make life very difficult on a one-dimensional Michigan offense. I think Mullings is a really good running back. Loveland is a really good tight end. And yeah, Davis Warren's proven to be the best of their quarterbacks, but he's not good. Offensive lines played a little better for Michigan. Like early on in the season, their right tackle, Evan Link, looked like I couldn't even believe they were starting him. He's actually starting to play well. But I think this Ohio State defense is the best in the country. I think they're really going to get after Michigan. And you look at the other side of the ball, I mean, to give Michigan their credit, they do have some studs on that defense. Absolute guy. I mean, guys that are going to be early NFL draft picks. Obviously, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant at D tackle. Now, I thought Chris Jenkins was good last year at D tackle. My Bengals took him in the second round. Good pick. He's actually playing decent as a rookie. I thought he was their third best D tackle last year.
Bengals could make a good pick.
I didn't know that either. I think unless it's like Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase.
Yeah, well.
But no, seriously though, he's no Dax Hill. And I thought he was their third best D tackle last year, Chris Jenkins, behind Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. They also have Stewart on the outside, who's very, very, very good. And they don't have Will Johnson. I don't think that's official, but Pete Thamel had said they probably won't have Will Johnson.
That's what it sounds like.
It'd be surprising if they do. He hasn't played in a while. They've got some other good defensive players. They don't have the depth that they did last year by any means. So I think Ohio State might wear them out. I agree. I could see this being a little, if you're a Buckeye fan, have some trepidation early. Hopefully the Ohio State just comes out and just, bludgeons them. But my gut tells me there's going to be some nervous moments for Buckeye Nation. Hopefully the team's not nervous early. And then Ohio State at some point is going to pull away. I just can't see Michigan's offense putting enough pressure on Ohio State's defense, because Michigan in past years could just play bully ball. We're going to run. We're still going to run. They don't have quite that good of an offensive line this year to be able to do that. And say what you want about J.J. McCarthy. Yeah, we said he wasn't a very good passer. He's markedly better than Davis Warren. And the receivers aren't very good. Again, Colston Loveland's an excellent tight end. He'll play in the NFL. But I think this defense is going to be the deciding factor for Ohio State.
It's funny you said that about the trepidation for fans coming to this game, because you grew up watching this game in the 90s. I remember the 90s to some extent. But then from that point on, when Tressel got here, Ohio State fans just knew winning against Michigan, basically. And it's funny to talk to people who are now experiencing losing to Michigan, even people my age who they were pretty young when that was happening, like for the first time. And, you always went into the Michigan game nervous, but now it's like, yeah, you have the way better team, but I've talked to multiple friends of mine that are very nervous still about this game, even though the Buckeyes are, 20-plus point favorite. Like I said earlier, I think it would be crazy if you're not on one side of this rivalry to pick against Ohio State going into this game, especially because it's at Ohio Stadium. But there is that, it's the rivalry game, it's happened before type of thing. And I think just with the dominance Ohio State had, that was erased for a little while.
Right.
And now it's back, and like you said, I think people are nervous. even though they are such big favorites.
Yeah, I didn't want the younger generations to have to experience it, but they have, because you're right. If you didn't live through the 90s and many heartbreaks and many times where Ohio State had the better team, like 96 is the best example. And Michigan would ruin Thanksgivings. Back then, the game would be the Saturday before Thanksgiving. So, a lot of us growing up in Ohio, Thanksgivings were ruined for us in the 90s. So, yeah, even during the Tressel years and the urban years, I was like, oh, it's still, that we still had the, the Cooper PTSD, as I called it, and then, the millennials and everybody, like, what are you worried about? Michigan's nothing. And now they're like, oh, gosh.
Right.
So, yeah, that's such a good point. Like a whole generation of Buckeye fans grew up thinking, oh, beating Michigan, that's just what we do. That's just what we do. And, like, those of us that are like, Gen X, I'm a young Gen X, but still Gen X. I'm almost I'm not almost a millennial. My wife is. My wife's like the youngest you could possibly be and still be Gen X. But anyway, like, we like lived through that. And, like, it's, and that's why even right now I'm saying I think Ohio State's going to bludgeon them. I'm not saying I know it, because I know there's a chance that anything can happen in this rivalry.
You talked about the players wanting to win for Ryan Day. There's also been talk about, obviously, wanting to win for the senior class. And most of the guys we talked to today were part of that. But post-game, we talked to Caden Curry. He brought up wanting to win for those guys that all came back with 3 goals in mind. One of them, and maybe in some guys' minds, like a Jack Sawyer who grew up in Columbus, the biggest one might be on Saturday and getting this monkey off their back. If this group is able to do that, we can talk about beyond this game, but get that pair of gold pants. Does it change the perception of this class in your mind?
Yes, and obviously, Will Howard was talking about this. Like, somebody asked him to reflect on his time at Ohio State, and he said it's not over yet, so it's hard for me to do that. Like, he's like, they hope they have 5 games left if things go well, right? Because then if you beat Oregon, then you get the bye and have to play 3 games. It is interesting. They all, this is a senior class that I'm sure the national championship is their biggest goal, but you're right. I mean, the way Sawyer was talking about it, he almost made it seem like, beating Michigan is the biggest goal, and they'll see what happens after that. If they beat Michigan and then they lose to Oregon and then lose in the first round, people might say, yeah, the one time you beat Michigan, they weren't good. Then you went out and you lost both postseason.
But it's better than losing to a Michigan.
That's definitely true. It would salvage their legacy, because they piled up wins, and I don't think that's what would happen. I don't think Ohio State's going to go lose to Oregon and then lose in the first round. I don't think that would happen. I'm just saying that would be the one thing that would throw a monkey wrench in. They finally got over the Michigan hump, the senior class. They're going to be remembered fondly. I think they will be remembered fondly. It's a matter of how fondly will they be remembered. But yeah, they got to take care of business on Saturday first.
Right. I think they've gotten through maybe the big step 1. The Michigan game is kind of its own step 2. And then you've got Big Ten Championship, college football playoff to kind of finish things off. A lot of the guys that are going to be on the field, be key contributors for the Buckeyes, have done this, have played in these games. But you mentioned Will Howard. He was asked about his record in rivalry games, and he said, "You mean KU? We don't lose to KU." He's like, "This is different." Like, obviously, and he understands it, but he also admitted, "I don't know what I don't know." Like, he only can know so much because he hasn't played in the game. And Emeka Egbuka similarly said, there are guys in this team who just don't know because they haven't done it. Jeremiah Smith, another guy who I imagine will be a key focus for Michigan, hasn't played in this game. Florida kid, obviously been committed to this program for a while, so he knows about it. But how much do you think that having so many experienced guys from this game makes a difference, bringing along a few guys that maybe haven't had the experience?
I think that helps Ohio State, because instead of you bringing in like 20 transfers, and they say all the right things, and they may even say that team up north, do they really get it? When you have the majority of the leaders and the key players on this team have suffered through the last 3 years, and then you bring in just a handful of transfers, then it's easy to ingratiate that, or what's the word I'm looking for? Not ingrain them into the culture. Yeah. And Will's a great example of that. Like, he gets it. Now, if you had 20 guys like that, would it be as easy? Probably not. But these guys, having all the seniors that are just completely hungry because of what's happened, the guys that came back, and then just having about 4 guys now that Seth is hurt, that are transfers. Yeah, I think it makes it a lot easier for those guys to get on board, the transfers themselves, and then it just helps Ohio State. You have so many guys that are key parts of this team that have never beaten Michigan and are foaming at the mouth to do so on Saturday. 4 days away, my friends.
Last thing, I was really impressed Kurt Cignetti's comments about Ohio Stadium on Saturday, and like it was loud, definitely in there. And sometimes we're in the press box; it's hard to tell. But going down the field at the end, you were watching it on TV. Then to hear the coach talk about it like that, this made an impact. And I've been critical of Ohio Stadium at times because it can be a sleepy atmosphere, especially not for big games. Buckeye Nation needs to be as loud, as crazy this week. How much do you think that can be a factor again, now that you've kind of seen what this fan base is capable of? Even in a noon game, they can take over a game and have an impact like that.
Just look at the game 6 years ago, though, which is crazy. That's the last time Ohio State's hosted Michigan was 2018. I mean, from the jump, Buckeye fans were getting after it. Now, different scenario then. Ohio State, I believe by kickoff, Ohio State might have been a 1-point favorite, but Ohio State was an underdog all week. They were the team playing with nothing to lose, and they came out there and just kicked the crap out of Michigan, even though Michigan was supposed to come in there and kick the crap out of Ohio State. And the crowd was just crazy the entire game. What we saw against Indiana was great, and I expected that. I expected the crowd to step up, Indiana being a top 5 team. It's going to be that plus whatever. I have no doubt Buckeye Nation is going to show up, because here's what I said. I filled in a lot last week on the fan, and we talked about this, and there's a lot of talk about how Ohio Stadium is not much of a home field advantage. And I kept making the point, listen, like, I've followed this team for a long time. Ohio Stadium's bipolar, actually. There's really no middle. Seriously, most of the time, I mean, like, it's not really much of an advantage. Like, you're playing like Purdue or Nebraska, it's really, it's kind of a wine and cheese crowd. Then there are times where Ohio Stadium's had as good of an atmosphere as I've ever seen. I'm including whiteout at Penn State. Games like 95 Ohio State Michigan, 95 Ohio State Notre Dame. That's as loud as I can remember hearing it. 09 Ohio State USC, even though they lost that game. Several Ohio State Michigan games. 06, 02, so many different ones. I mean, 2016 was off the chain. 2018, like I'm saying, there's Penn State games I could talk about. So, like, this will be one of those 2 games a year where Ohio Stadium is a competitive advantage. Like, I get it. As people go, it's like they go to the Marshall game and they're like, oh, it's a wine and cheese crowd. It's like, the wine and cheese might be being thrown around the stadium. This is going to be off the chain. I keep using that term. I think it's still the 90s. Speaking of the 90s, it's going to be crazy in the Horseshoe. I have no doubt about that.
All right. Well, we've got a lot of work to do, so we're going to wrap this up. Steve is posting videos. I assume you can find them on our YouTube page already if you haven't looked at those yet. But we talked to Ryan Day, Will Howard, Emeka Egbuka, Cody Simon, Jack Sawyer. Is that everybody?
Everybody. We were supposed to get Travion, but he's in there watching film. I love it, man. Getting this extra film study in. So there you go. Those are the 5 we got.
Right. All right. Stay tuned to Bucknuts this week. We will have everything in the build-up to this game, and post-game we'll be on discussing what we assume will be a Buckeye win. But we'll see. Thanks, guys.